Hi friends, my name is Bella and I'm a makeup artist sharing tutorials. Today's tutorial is how to do your everyday makeup. Because this is a step-by-step guide, go ahead and grab your makeup brushes and follow along, or you can just stick around and watch. Let's get to it. Okay, so starting off with foundation base, I'm planning on doing a separate video when it comes to skin prep. So if you have oily skin, dry skin, or combination skin, I'm thinking about making a separate video for that. If you do think that would be helpful, comment below. I'm going to include my last step that I typically use before I put on my foundation, which is going to be setting spray. Everyday makeup typically people are using or wearing all day or the course of the day. So whether it's makeup for going to school, going to work, I would assume we'd want it to last all day. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray some setting spray on, not a whole lot, just enough to kind of just mist my face. Now, when it comes to foundation or tinted moisturizer, BB cream, whatever you like to use for every day, what I always like to tell people is wear foundation that's meant for your skin type, not because it's popular, if that makes sense. Like truly wear what works for you. I have combination skin and I get pretty oily in my T-zone. I'm gonna be using the Fit Me Maybelline. I'm a brush gal, so I'm gonna be applying with the brush, but if you like to use a beauty blender, your hands, it's really up to you. Start in the middle or the center of your face and pull outwards. You want to go in with a light hand. And what I mean by that is like the actual pressure that you're applying to on your face. You want to go in with a light hand. So I am just very lightly brushing this on or painting it on, going downwards, under my chin, and very lightly onto my neck. It doesn't really need to be all over here. Again, just brushing downwards. And I'm using a neutralizing shade here, just to balance out my skin tone all over my face. If you are someone who really doesn't like to wear foundation like that or BB cream, then I would recommend just spot concealing where you need to with your finger, blend it out, and you're good to go. As I apply product on my forehead, I'm gonna be going towards my hairline. So really the trick is here, you're starting from the center and going out like a flower, if that makes sense. So we're gonna go like this. From here, we're going down. From here, we're going up. When it comes to the eye area, you don't really need much foundation because we're gonna be applying concealer there anyway. When it comes to the chin area here and below the chin, I'm only applying leftover product on the brush. I'm not actually applying more foundation, if that makes sense. So whatever leftover product I have on my brush is what I'm using to blend it downwards, just to make it blend into the skin. The point of that is so it doesn't look cakey. I just want it to be natural, but also all we're doing is just trying to avoid that line. And we've all seen it before. Just from the bottom, leftover product on my brush, just lightly blending it in, going downwards, and that's it. Taking my concealer, I'm going to go under the eye, right in here, because that is where I want to attract brightness. And then I'm going to go upwards here. And then anything after that is optional. So for me, I like for my chin to stick out. I like to add concealer on the bridge of my nose for that to stick out. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Right now I'm just doing placement and then we'll blend in afterwards. Also, I like this part of my brow. It just gives it a nice clean effect. And then under my lip here, going upwards and out very lightly. Gives more shape to my lip. Taking the other side of this brush here, I'm going to tap. I'm not going to wipe under my eye. I'm going to tap it in. As I'm tapping it in and outwards here, that part where we skipped right in here, we're gonna apply product there, the leftover product anyway, of that concealer. And then as I work on the outer portion here, I'm going to tap it all the way to my hairline. Any harsh lines you'd want to diffuse, use, again, that leftover product on that brush and just stamp it, just like this, or under the eye, going down for a seamless application. That's what we want overall, is a seamless application all over the face, so everything looks married together, not separated and unblended. When it comes to the rest of my face, I am going to be using that foundation brush side here, and I'm patting and wiping away. Pat, wipe, pat, wipe, just like that. Now, when setting the face, if you like to use a powder bronzer, then at this point, I would recommend getting a translucent powder and just setting and dusting the whole face, but putting an emphasis on under the eye and areas where you get oily. So like around the nose or even on the smile lines, and then on the forehead too as well, if you get oily on your forehead. I use a cream bronzer for myself because I do not have or have found a powder bronzer that works on my skin tone. So if you guys have any recommendations, I used to use Sketch Blush from MAC as a bronzer, but then they discontinued it. So now I use this here by Selena Gomez. And this shade match is Chef's Kiss. Like, I use it as a contour bronzer, and the way it dries down is just so beautiful. For a setting, so I'm gonna use just a translucent white powder here. With a brush, you can use a powder puff. I'm gonna look up and pat, pat, pat. I'm not gonna wipe. You absolutely do not wanna wipe during this part. Right in those crevices under the eye, and patting going outwards. Do you see the difference there? Same thing on the other side. And then I'm gonna go ahead and go around my nose here because I get oily there, also on my forehead. And I'm not gonna go that high because, again, I'm gonna be applying a cream product bronzer on me. But if you like to use powder, then go ahead and set your whole face. And this is just a translucent powder. It works on every single skin tone, as fair, as deep as me. So shout out to MCO Beauty. If you want to use a contour and a bronzer, or a contour shade and not a bronzer, it's up to you. I prefer a bronzer because it has that warmth, which gives depth to the skin. I'm gonna go ahead with my cream shade here. Where the hollows of your cheekbones are here, you don't want to apply bronzer there. Cream, powder, doesn't matter. You want to go a tad bit higher. Same thing with blush. You want to go pretty high there, right in between, and then your highlight will be here. So for contour, the hollows of my cheekbones are right in here. I'm going to go a little bit higher. By the time I blend it in, if I do put it right on the hollows of my cheekbones down here, it's going to do the opposite effect and drag my face down, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to apply 2 dots, one here and one here. And then I like a really pretty bronzing effect around the perimeters of my forehead. So I'm going to do that. And then I like a little on my nose. And then I prefer a sucked in look, if you will. So I also like to go right on the bottom here of my jawline. And I'm going to go ahead here with my slanted brush. And again, we are patting this on. The last thing you're going to do, powder, cream, it doesn't matter, is rub. No, 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 no. We're going to pat because we are pros. Just like so, with the light hand going upwards. And then your friend is going to be like, who did your makeup? Can you do mine? You're going to be like, I did my makeup, actually. I watched Apamon's tutorial. Let me show you what I learned. If you have a powder that you're using, then again, pat on The only difference is it would be a little quicker. So this part here, if you can see how it needs to be blended in a little bit more, but there's powder there. You don't want it to, look blotchy. Again, that foundation brush has nothing on it. I'm just gonna pat it on, and that shall blend it in no problem. There you go. When it comes to the chin / jawline area here, I'm gonna pat and blend right down to about there. I am going to go right in here too, right where the earlobe is in the very end of my jawline, to have that Facetune effect, if you will. Foundation brush, it's gonna stamp right on there. Under here too, where my contour is. And we are bronzed. Let's highlight. I'm going to apply a highlighter at the very high points of my cheekbones, and I'm gonna make a C. Again, tapping it on. I'm gonna start by tapping here, tapping, tapping, tapping. And once I hit this bone here, that's where I'm going to stop. I'm not gonna go all the way in. So right to that bone, and we're gonna make a C. That way when we turn to the side and we're working on our computer, we just have that beautiful glow. I took on my chin, on that bridge of my nose there, and I did apply a little bit on my forehead there. And this shade also is like a rose gold. So when I apply on my blush, it just blends in smoothly. Going in with blush now, I'm gonna use a small powder brush. I'm going to apply it at the high points of my cheeks, in between my contour and my highlight. Pat it on with that C motion that we did, but I'm not gonna go as high as my highlight. So it's going to be a smaller C. And then I'm gonna go ahead down to the high points of my cheeks. Just like that. So as you can see, highlight, blush, contour. Now, before we move on to eyes, what I like to do now, or what I like to recommend, is applying a little bit more powder. I like a brightening powder under the eye that you can sweep away later. So I'm going to go ahead with a brightening powder. I'm just gonna pat in, pack it on, just like so. Right to the bridge of my nose, just like that. I'm gonna go like that. And I'm just going to let that cook and sit in while I do my eye makeup, and then swipe off the remaining. And it just gives this beautiful brightening effect under the eye that's not cakey. And now we can do eyes. Some people, what they like to do is they like to use a concealer on their eyes to prime their eyelids. Now for me, I have oily eyelids, and I also have hooded eyelids. So I like to use, and I like to recommend to my clients that are sitting in the chair, an actual eyeshadow primer that is going to lock in all of that. I'm gonna go ahead and apply some eyeshadow primer. Just gonna use a brush, or you can use your finger, it's up to you, just to spread it around here. And I'm going to evenly distribute that all over my eyelid. That way, when you are going about your day, you don't have to worry about creasing as much. And then I'm going to take a little bit of translucent powder with the tiniest dab, just like that, and just pat it on like that. It's almost nothing, okay? Beautiful. The easiest, fastest way for an everyday makeup look is, number one, a gold eyeshadow, I would say. Gold is one of those universal shades that works with anyone and any eye color. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply this beautiful gold shade from Clinique. And because I have hooded eyelids, you see I went a little higher there. I'm gonna pat it on. Okay, and then I'm just gonna use a small domed fluffy brush here, just to blend out those edges so it's not so harsh. Another shadow stick that I love, by the way, is by Tower 28. I'm actually just gonna go. You guys don't have to do this, just use one shadow stick. Yeah, I like the shimmer. I really like the shimmer. I like to use like a creme brulee tone on my inner corner here and then under my brow. For me, like a light off-white creme color is gonna be like this on me. Lighter skin tone, it might be something like this. I like to use a matte shade in my inner corner and under my eye. It just gives a really nice, soft, subtle brightness lifting effect, I would say. And then I like to leave the lid or the star of the show. I'm gonna use a small domed brush, patting here, and then I'm going to go like this, upwards, using this kind of motion. Not really gonna be using my whole hand, more so this kind of motion, so more of like that flicking. And then under, ever so slightly. And you can see already how this eye obviously looks a little bit more lifted, and see how folded this one looks because I applied that shadow just a little bit higher. Now I'm gonna be using that same shade that I used in my inner corner. And for this part, I'm gonna be using my whole hand like this, starting under my brow, right in the middle where that high point is. I'm gonna just slightly blend down. And I'm gonna go outwards. Again, we want a seamless look. You don't want it just to stop. Kind of go like this here, wipe any excess off and kind of just blend, blend, blend to meet my highlight that I applied on my cheek. Going this way, very gently. For our transition shade, I'm gonna use this dark burgundy fluffy brush, going inner and then going outwards here. And then if you would like, right at that end there, you can apply just a little bit. So that bronzing shade that we use now, we're gonna use the slightest bit just to complete the eye to meet with the highlight shade we use under our eye, just like so. I like to use a nude shade in my waterline just for that. It just gives that oomph of that just like everyday brightening effect on the eye. Notice I did not say white eyeliner, nude. So your skin tone shade, whatever that is for you, for me, it's like a muted brown right in my waterline, just like that. Just opens it up a little bit. If you already have beautiful, big, bushy boy brows, then I'd recommend just using a clear gel. I like to use one that has color to it. If you need to fill in your brows, at this point, I would fill in your brows where you need to. So I'm going upwards there, just in an upwards motion. And then I like to go ahead and groom the top part down just for a clean look. I like a nice fine tip point brow. This is the part where you want to use the flick of the wrist, okay? You just flick the wrist going upwards where you need to. Fill that in, okay? And then also in here, I have some gaps that I very, very lightly like to fill in. If you ever apply on too much brow product and you're like, oh, that's a bit much there, use the spoolie side or get a spoolie and brush the opposite direction, and that will just fluff out that product and you can go back and start over again. Okay friends, we're at the home stretch. I've applied on my mascara, we've done our foundation, we've done our blush. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is, remember that setting powder? I'm gonna wipe off the product here. And I'm just going to melt that in for me a little bit more. And under here, because why not? Right in here. And for this part, I am applying a little bit more pressure, okay? I'm not really going in with the light hand because I really want it to blend in or mesh in with the other product. Do left over on my forehead too. If you would like to go ahead and look at the products that I'm actually using, because I'm not really mentioning the products that I'm using, you can go ahead and do that with the links provided below. So I'm going to go ahead with my Cool Tone liner here and line my lips. Gorgeous. I like this pencil. because it has like a sheen to it. This is Rhode, by the way. I like to apply lipstick after the gloss because I want it to just slide right on. I'm not gonna apply a lot, but enough to notice that, you know, I want gloss. And I like to use more of a cool tone pink, right, starting in the middle and just glide it on. You see that? I'm gonna warm it up just a little bit here, not too much. Okay. Yeah, that'll do. You know what would really elevate this look? The cleanup. Cleaning up the edges of your makeup literally amps it up and makes your makeup look like a professional did it. I'm using a lighter tone finishing powder here, which is a small brush, and I'm going to do the cleanup on the outer portion here. Small circular motions and lightly blending it in. On the outer, going upwards, always going upwards. Do you see the difference? Cleanup. I love a good cleanup. And then on the outer portion of the eye there, right under the eye actually. Do you see that? Just like that nice, like, whoosh. I love that. And then I also like to go in this inner portion here of my eyebrow too. And just go upwards, blending it into my forehead. Right in here. Now, to marry everything in together, we're gonna apply, lastly, setting spray. If you've made it this far, then we're friends. And because we're friends now, I will see you soon. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and I will see you soon. Stay fabulous.